As we gather together, we acknowledge that the land upon which our church and homes exist is the ancestral land stolen from the people of the Shoshone Bannock, the Shoshone Paiute, Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai, and Nez Perce nations, along with many other tribes whose names have been lost in history. We acknowledge that our presence here today is founded upon the exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples. With this acknowledgement, we wish to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to the work of dismantling the legacies of settler colonialism. We honor Indigenous peoples' connection to the land and support their right to sovereignty.
Good morning. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I'm the Reverend Sara LaWall. I use she, her pronouns, and I am honored to be the minister of this beloved community. I'm joined today by Jonathan Dover, who is serving as our celebrant. You might hear his beautiful daughter Samantha talking to him while he's up here today. And today we are blessed with the beautiful music from our own Mike Lemieux. We are a spiritually diverse, justice-seeking religious community with one great aim: to grow in love. Love of neighbor, love for our planet, love for ourselves. And we welcome all of you who join us in that endeavor. A special welcome to those who are joining us online this morning. We're so glad you're there. Let's turn and give a wave to our friends in Zoom land. Some of you know, if you read the Facebooks, that I spent my Friday at the legislature. The House State Affairs Committee heard and passed a bill that would make using preferred pronouns compelled speech and therefore illegal under the First Amendment of the Constitution, making it illegal then to require state employees and teachers to use preferred pronouns of their colleagues, people, and students. And during my testimony, I got up there, and after I got through the whole introduction about supporting trans people as faith communities and Unitarian Universalists, I said, at my church, we invite people to put their pronoun stickers on their name tags so that we can intentionally welcome them as they wish to be welcomed. And so I really want us to live into that statement with deep intentionality. So Jonathan and I have some extra pronoun stickers. And while we do that, friends on Zoom, if you know how to change your name on Zoom, if you don't, it's okay. I invite you to put in parentheses your pronouns next to your name so that folks can see that and we can welcome that in each other. And here, while you're getting your pronoun sticker, I encourage you, let's take a moment to greet our neighbors in person, introduce yourselves, share your pronouns with each other, put your sticker on your name tag, and friends on Zoom, turn your cameras on so we can wave at you and say hi while we're greeting our neighbors. pass those pronoun sheets along. If you have your pronouns, pass it along, pass it along. If the House States Affairs Committee could see us now. So proud. It's really, friends, it's not that hard, is it? Not that hard. Not that hard to identify your pronoun and use pronouns. It helps. The stickers help us know our pronouns. Not that hard. Okay, Brent Crane, not that hard. And good morning, Zoomers. It's so good to see you out there. Edna, Edith, Jane, Sandy Cruz, Andrea, Linda, Teresa. So good to see all of you out there. Thank you for joining us this morning. Our online community, you remind us that we worship together as one beloved community beyond the walls of this sanctuary. If you are seeking something larger than yourself or are in search of your own heart, you are welcome here. If you believe that all religions of the world are right and true, but none is entirely right, nor does any religion have a corner on the market of truth, you are welcome here. Amen. If you believe each of us has to seek the truth in the possibility of science and religion coexisting together, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, however you identify, whatever pronouns you choose to use, and I apologize if they're not available to you on our sheet, you are welcome here. And we know it takes a lot of courage to step inside and cross the threshold of a new community. So for our newcomers who are joining us for the first, second, third, even fourth time, welcome, a special welcome. We're glad that you've joined us. We hope that you stay to introduce yourselves to us after the service and online and fill out our newcomer form so that we can keep you posted with all that's happening in our fellowship. Today begins our Inquirers series. This is a series of sessions specifically for newcomers designed to introduce you to Unitarian Universalism and to our fellowship. And so we'll be meeting down at the end of the North Wing shortly after worship this morning. You can get some coffee and head down there. I have a lot of announcements this morning, friends, because we have a lot going on here, so bear with me. But first, I want to begin with our hospitality gratitude. To Sherry Hamilton, Becky Groff, and Sue Philly, thank you for the hospitality support this morning. I am also delighted to share with you the outcome of our vote. Here it is, 95% in favor of moving forward with our capital campaign. Our capital campaign leadership team will send you a big email with a lot more details to talk about how the campaign will unfold and what you can expect. Thank you to all who voted. We had an extraordinary voter participation, and we really appreciate the time that you took to learn, to be at the town hall, to read that ballot, and to exercise your vote. That's who we are as Congregationalists, right? We practice democracy as a spiritual value. Our beautiful quilters have a gorgeous quilt that they are raffling off through us this month through March 17th. There it is, and it comes with a bonus table runner. Please go look at it in the hospitality room because you can't quite see the extent of the gorgeousness on the slide here, and they will be there ready to sell raffle tickets for you. We're in the middle of Black History Month. How many of you were able to attend Waking Up White? I hope that was a wonderful conversation yesterday, or maybe you went to the gospel workshop and concert. Next Sunday, the 25th, we are proud sponsors of the staged reading of Intimate Apparel directed by Boise's own Lita Harris Newstetter, 2 p.m. at Boise Contemporary Theater. We sent an email with links to how you can RSVP for your free tickets, but we're still asking for RSVPs. If you need that link sent to you again, please check in with Nancy before you go today, or online. She can post the link online there for you. And our nominating committee is gearing up. Our nominating committee is gearing up to help support leadership for this congregation as we look ahead to who will serve on our board and nominating committee for the next fiscal year. And they're hosting a meetup with former board members. If anyone is interested in board service or just more about what does leadership in the congregation look like, please join that informal meetup next Sunday right after the service down in the North Wing and meet board members, meet the nominating committee, and learn more about leadership in the congregation. And finally, the following Saturday, March 2nd, we're hosting a community book brunch and conversation to support our trans and non-binary communities, celebrating this beautiful book, Authentic Selves, which was published by our own UU Publishing House, Skinner House Books. One of the contributors to the book will be here with us, Joey Morelli. And if you haven't had a chance to watch the gorgeous promo video, I invite you to check that out on our Boise UU YouTube page or on Facebook. It was a much needed balm after my day on Friday, and it's a really beautiful video. So really, truly, we want this event to be about community care for our trans and non-binary community, to love up on them and to support and celebrate the beauty and diversity and gorgeousness of our trans and non-binary community, not just here in Idaho, but across the country. As you know, our fellowship donates 25% of our unpledged plate offering to support a local organization whose mission aligns with our social justice mission. This month, it's the perfect combination of Add the Words. Many of them were out in force with me on Friday. Add the Words is our local organization that does all kinds of support and advocacy and care for our queer community, really championing rights for our LGBTQIA+ community. Our spiritual theme for this month of February is breakthrough, the practice of feeling pain. Ooh, I knew it would be a good theme for this time of year, but I didn't realize how deep it really would be. The practice of feeling pain and what it takes to get to breakthrough. And today we're exploring the pain of confronting privilege and what it might take to get us to that breakthrough. So as we enter this time of worship together, I invite us all to take a breath together. Fill your body with breath. Breathe, knowing our breath connects us to our bodies, to one another, to our planet. Our breath offers us an opportunity for stillness, to tune in to our spiritual center, to listen deeply to our heart's own longing. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-riven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep, to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp where my feet shall tread. Thy way is steep past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream. It is an all too familiar story in our country. A young Black man gunned down by police. Year after year after year, it keeps happening. And all too often, those deaths go unanswered as countless police officers are acquitted of their crimes and never brought to justice. In 2000, Bruce Springsteen released the song American Skin to give voice to the brutal police murder of Amadou Diallo, who, in an attempt to reach for his wallet to correct a case of mistaken identity, was killed by 4 New York City police officers who fired a total of 41 shots, hitting Diallo with 19 bullets. That was in 1999. All 4 police officers were charged with second-degree murder, and all 4 were acquitted. Springsteen wrote, "This is what systemic racial injustice, fear, and paranoia do to our children. They pay the price in blood." One would think we've evolved or changed. We've begun to wake up to the privileges white folks carry that lay the foundation for such atrocities to occur. But sadly, the song has become a haunting anthem dedicated to far too many victims of racist violence. Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Freddie Gray, Michael Brown, Philando Castile, Breonna Taylor, and many, many, many more. This anthem reveals a deep spiritual wound in a society that allows one skin color to claim a shield of protection, while another, darker skin, becomes a regular target. And we all begin to wonder if redemption is even possible. How can we begin to repair the devastation of 41 shots?
Shots, 41 shots, 41 shots, 41 shots, 41 shots, and we'll take that ride across this bloody river to the other side. 41 shots cut through the night. You're kneeling over his body in the vestibule, praying for his life. Is it a gun? Is it a knife? Is it a wallet? This is your life. It ain't no secret. It ain't no secret. No secret, my friend. You can get killed just for living in your American skin. 41 shots. 41 shots. 41 shots, 41 shots. Lena gets her son ready for school. She says, on these streets, Charles, you got to understand the rules. If an officer stops you, promise me you'll always be polite, and that you'll never ever run away. Promise, mama, you'll keep your hands in sight. Is it a gun? Is it a knife? Is it a wallet? This is your life. It ain't no secret. It ain't no secret, no secret, my friend. You can get killed just for living in your American skin. 41 shots. 41 shots. 41 shots. Is it a gun? Is it a knife? Is it in your heart? Is it in your eyes? It ain't no secret. It ain't no secret. It ain't no secret. 41 shots, and we'll take that ride across this bloody river to the other side. 41 shots, got my boots caked with this mud. We're baptized in these waters and in each other's blood. Is it a gun? Is it a knife? Is it a wallet? This is your life. It ain't no secret. It ain't no secret, no secret, my friend. You can get killed just for living in. You can get killed just for living in. You can get killed just for living in your American skin. 41 shots. 41 shots. 41 shots.
Each week, we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of hope, love, and justice. We join in this lighting in solidarity and community with thousands of other Unitarian Universalists lighting chalices today in churches, homes, and in virtual worship spaces, reminding us that we are connected to one another and to a larger community of faith and love. Today, we have a young first-time chalice lighter with us. We invite a child to light the chalice to recognize the children and youth in our community, our responsibility to them, and the future we are building together. As Coraline Workman lights the chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you in our virtual community to light a chalice if you have one nearby, along with us this morning. Then share in the chat where you have lit your chalice.
Coraline, great job. Thank you. Coraline, will you stay up here for just a moment? You can stay with Mom, can stay too. I would like to introduce you to everybody. Friends, this is Coraline Workman. She is the only child of Krista O'Connor and Matthew Workman. She would like you to know that her favorite food is mac and cheese. Anybody else out there with the mac and cheese? See, lots of us. And she loves to spend her time, some of her free time, playing with her stuffies. Me too. Coraline, thank you for being our chalice lighter this morning. Here is your official chalice lighter.
With our collective chalices lit in all of our spaces, we offer you this call to worship, adapted from the Reverend Christian Schmidt. Let us wake up. not just from the Sunday morning exhaustion, from the wish for a few more drowsy minutes in bed. Let us wake up to this world we live in, to its beauty and wonder, and also its tragedy and pain. We must wake up to this reality, that not all in our world have what we do, however much or little that is. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, are only as complete as the lives of those around us, of those to whom we are inextricably linked in a great web of mutuality. We must stay woke, in the words of our friends and colleagues, fighting racism, oppression, and injustice, working every day for the rights and human dignity for all people. Let us wake up, let us stay awake, and let us stay woke. Come, let us worship together.
I'd like to invite our young friends to come down here on this side, maybe, and join me for our time for all ages. We're starting the day a little intensely today. Thank you, Mike. That was gorgeous. Really, really stunning. Because we're talking about privilege and racism and sexism and all the isms and a lot of hard stuff today, and how painful it can be to confront those things. You heard I'm going to come sit down here with you all. You heard in our opening words just now that we need to stay awake and we need to stay woke. That means we need to stay aware of all the injustices that are around us, all the ways in which our society is constructed to privilege some people and hurt other people. And it can be really hard to be in that place and to understand it. And it can feel like there's so much of it, and we might wonder, well, what am I supposed to do about it? What am you supposed to do? What are any of us supposed to do about it? So I'm going to share a little wisdom tale this morning, and perhaps it's one you've already heard. I know it's one that a lot of you have heard because I've shared it before some years ago. But it fit really well with our theme today of breakthrough in the practice of feeling pain and our earth teacher. Who remembers what our earth teacher? Starfish, right? Because a starfish can regenerate itself newly. Thank you, Matt, on it all the time. So this is a story about starfish. This is a story about a young person who's walking along the beach one day and sees hundreds of starfish on the shore, on the beach. And the tide is going out, and there are like that many. And so this young person looks around and takes it all in, and then just starts picking up the starfish and throwing them back in the ocean. Walking down the beach, picking up starfish, throwing it back in the ocean. Picking up a starfish, throwing it back in the ocean. And they're walking along the beach, and they encounter this older gentleman, and the older gentleman says to this young person, "Why are you doing this? Why are you picking up the starfish and throwing them back in the ocean?" And the young person says, "Because the tide is going out, and if I don't do that, they'll die. If they stay here on the beach, they'll die." And the older gentleman says, "Well, you can't save all of them. I mean, it's not going to make much of a difference." And the young person picks up the next starfish and looks at the older gentleman and says, "You know what they say? Have you heard this? It made a difference to this one." And threw the starfish back in the ocean and then kept going. So sometimes when we feel overwhelmed by all the awfulness in the world and all the injustices in the world, we just got to get really narrow and think, what's one thing I can do to make one small difference in the life of another person? That might be using someone's preferred pronoun. That might be noticing if a friend is really upset, or maybe even not a friend, just someone in your class or someone in your school, and reaching out to them and asking them, "Are you okay? Do you need anything? Is there anything I can do? Can I help?" The littlest things add up to big things and big things. And if we all do the little things, right? If we all do 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 starfish, then that will multiply. And we just might be able to get all the starfish back in the ocean. So let's remember that together. That's one thing we can do. I want to invite us all to join together in singing our community blessing, and our children and youth to join their teachers for their religious exploration classes. Children's RE is for those aged 5 to 5th grade, going out there with Jem, and our youth RE is 6th grade out this way today. Everybody together today. Everybody together today, that way. And our nursery is available for those as a little cry room. And as always, we have our playground activity cart, so if you're staying here in the sanctuary, there are activities and things for you to do. Let's all sing our community blessing and invite our youth and children on their way. May your minds be open to learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May our heart know love and our hands do the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
In our commitment to generosity, to give in alignment with the core values of this faith, we take small steps toward dismantling systems of power and privilege, and instead help build a world that works hard to support the thriving and flourishing of all people. This month's plate partner, Add the Words Idaho, is a shining example of the work in our community, centering care, support, mutual aid, and advocacy. We share our offering gifts with them as an expression of our commitment to their vision and to living out our faith in the world. I invite the ushers to come forward. Our offering will be greatly received.
I invite our ushers to come forward with our offering, and I invite all of you to join me in our collective blessing of our offering together. We bless these gifts, freely given and freely received. May they help us live out our Unitarian Universalist values within and beyond our walls. Thank you.
believe it or not, where I grew up was actually wider than Idaho. In central Montana, my only exposure to people of color was through whatever media I was allowed to consume, not the most radical of offerings. The first black person I ever really met was in high school when a local family took in 2 foster children. We actually became very close. We were the kind of friends who shared inside jokes and sly glances in the back of the classroom when neither of us could be bothered to pay attention in earth science. In terms of race, the best way I could describe our relationship, or the way I saw our relationship, would be colorblind. Obviously, I could see that she was black, but I thought the best thing that I could do was just to pretend that we were the same. My first glimpse of the deep differences in our experience was in art class sophomore year. I walked into class one day, and my friend had her head down at the table, and it was clear she had been crying for a while. Through the murmuring of everyone else around me, I gathered that another student called her the N-word directly to her face in the middle of class. At the time, I knew it was a racist slur, but I'll never be able to truly understand her experience in that moment. And even though I saw some of her pain, it was just a few years later that I believed saying the N-word was okay as long as your intention wasn't racist or you used a soft R. Looking back, I can more clearly see my journey to a deeper understanding of race and my own privilege. I can see the whitewashed experience of my youth and how that played into getting caught in the alt-right pipeline in college. For me, this unlearning really began with COVID, a period of profound unraveling for me, the crack that let the light in. Last year, I had the privilege to take part in a white supremacy unlearning circle that was facilitated by Reverend Sara and our recent ministerial intern, Timothy. In the first few sessions, I was so tense and uneasy, I could hardly speak. It was through meeting continuously with this group that I learned how vital it was to be vulnerable. Even though I was reading all the right books on my own and listening to the right people, I would have stayed stuck if I didn't talk about my experience with race, with other people in a room. And not just the fully examined experiences that I had processed by myself that might make me appear more evolved in my own unlearning, but the messy, half-formed sentences that were shrouded under shame. White people need spaces where we can talk with other white people about our whiteness without judgment. I believe listening to the experience of people of color is vital, but we must do the work of learning and unlearning ourselves and not rely on people of color to educate us, help us, or tell us how to do the work. We cannot offload the emotional labor to those who are already being oppressed. Something I carry from my evangelical upbringing is a nearly insatiable desire to convince myself and those around me that I am good. And as far as I can tell, to be labeled a Nazi or racist puts you first in line to be socially ostracized. What I want to believe for myself, and I want to believe for everyone, and what I want others to hear, is that it is okay to not be perfect when it comes to race, not that such a thing even exists. We are all going to make mistakes. White supremacy culture is the water we swim in. I just hope we have the courage to come together with open hearts and to continue doing the work of transforming ourselves and our world.
I'm a white man living in a white man's world. Under our roof is a baby girl. I thought this world could be hers one day, but her mama knew better. I'm a white man living in a white man's town. wanna take a shot of cocaine and burn it down. Mama wants to change that Nashville sound, but they're never gonna let her. There's no such thing as someone else's war. Your creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. Still breathing, it's not too late. We're all carrying one big burden, sharing one fate. I'm a white man living on a white man's street. Got the bones of the red man under my feet. The highway runs through their burial grounds, past the oceans of cotton. I'm a white man looking in a black man's eyes, wishing I'd never been one of the guys pretending not to hear another white man's joke. Oh, the times ain't forgotten. There's no such thing as someone else's war. Your creature comforts aren't the only things worth fighting for. You're still breathing, it's not too late. We're all carrying one big burden, sharing one fate. It's not too late. We're all carrying one big burden, sharing one fate. I'm a white man living in a white man's nation. I think the man upstairs must have took a vacation. I still have faith, but I don't know why. Maybe it's the fire in my little girl's eyes. Maybe it's the fire in my little girl's eyes.
Thank you. Again, Mike, all the music were Mike's wonderful suggestions and selections this morning, really shoring up this intense service. Because it is a white man's world, friends. It is. Still. And it always has been, at least in the historical formation of this country. And the more that I learn about the deep histories of all of the various forms of oppression, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, classism, the more that truth of that reality takes hold of my heart, and I cannot help but wonder if we will ever truly be free of it. It's so deeply ingrained in our systems and our culture, deeply ingrained in our economy, to begin to even imagine something else feels sometimes impossible. But thankfully, last summer, we all got a delightful glimpse into a dreamland future with Greta Gerwig's brilliant satirical comedy fantasy film, Barbie. How many of you saw Barbie? Yeah. For 1 hour, 54 minutes, we got to enjoy the imaginative fantasy that the gift of Barbie had to our society, that had changed everything for women, and the world became just like Barbie Land, run by women. A world of flip-flopped power where women were in charge and did everything and ran everything, and men were just accessories. I'm glad you're laughing. I, for one, reveled in that impossible but delightful vision, allowing myself to go along for the ride and try to pretend to really feel what that fantasy might feel like. And now I want to say that I really loved the film, and I also found it very problematic. Many, many issues with its lack of racial diversity for one, its perpetuation of continuous impossible beauty standards and body standards for women and men, and the fact that it was funded by Mattel, so the whole capitalist foundation is very much at play. However, that is a whole nother sermon, one I'm still trying to construct for you, and we'll give it some day. This one, though, is about privilege. For me, the whole movie was a mix between delightful hilarity and moments I can only describe as oof, because they captured the painful realities of our society all too well, even as they wove it in humor. That moment when Barbie and Ken have to visit the real world. You see, for those who didn't see it, they live in Barbie land, but then they have to go to the real world. And in the real world, they are confronted with the real world of privilege, all the things. And Ken discovers patriarchy for the first time. So I had to show you a clip because it's way easier than explaining it to you. Let's watch.
Excuse me, sir. Thanks, man. What's up, man?
We got a man up on this one.
Great workout, man. Man. You're the man. No, you're the man. Man. Don't sit down your old place.
These are the ROI exceeding expectations. Good stuff. So I'm not worried about it. Not now, Margaret. Let's shake on this. We're gonna make a lot of money. We're officially important.
Yes.
I mean, if you were Ken, who wouldn't love that dream? In the scene that follows, Ken is asking a businessman for a job, and he's told that he'll need to hold all of these degrees, an MBA and a PhD, and Ken quips to him, "You guys aren't doing patriarchy very well." And the businessman replies with a conspiratorial whisper, "Oh, we're doing it well, we just hide it even better." Oof. And now, if you paid attention to the media coverage of Barbie when it premiered, you might have read about the loud and angry backlash from men, mostly conservative pundits, all white men, calling the movie man-hating, suggesting that it portrays men as unnecessary and stupid, as though Hollywood has never portrayed a whole class in less than a positive light. Note to men. I feel like this should go without saying, but I'm gonna need to say it anyway. It's easy to feel a little bit called out by these highlights of privilege and patriarchy in our culture. In the practice of confronting privileges, of speaking truth to power, those that hold the most privileged dominant identities might get a little prickly, uncomfortable. I know I have at times. So to my cisgender, straight, white men in the room, pointing out the way that privileged identity which you happen to share has created structures of oppression and harm that require our attention and undoing is not the same as saying you are not a good person or not worthy of the gifts of community and connection. Naming and confronting our privilege is about reminding ourselves how we are all hurt by these systems. And it can be difficult and distressing and really uncomfortable and bring up a lot of difficult feelings that we like to dismiss and deny and push away. One of the functions of privilege is rarely having to think about privileged identities as identities. Confronting privilege is about confronting all of those unearned advantages that contribute to amassed power and comfort and ease afforded by our culture. And then asking ourselves now that we are awake to that system of power, what will we do with it? Of course there was backlash to Barbie. Anytime any of us who occupy a space of power and privilege are confronted with the painful impacts of that privilege, even humorously, there is bound to be backlash, even in progressive liberal circles like ours. I remember the first time I was confronted with my own white upper middle class privilege as a teenager in high school in the 90s. I was in a community theater group traveling around to other high schools doing theater workshops as part of an anti-drug campaign. Now, I don't remember the exact circumstances and conversation that played out. I'm sure I said something well-meaning with some righteous conviction from my own sheltered upbringing. And the two young, wonderful Black men that lived in a different neighborhood than I did called me out and told me to my face that I was racist. Of course, I got defensive, backlash, and pleaded my case, pointing to my liberal upbringing, my quest for social justice. I did not understand then, in ways that I work hard to understand now, that they were commenting on, pointing to, calling out my unearned white privilege. That being white afforded me more power, more status, more opportunity, whether I knew it or earned it or even wanted it. And that privilege has been systematically created and bolstered over hundreds and thousands of years that oftentimes we don't even realize that it's everywhere. It's just the water we swim in. And it's common to get defensive when being confronted with your privilege, especially if you come from a place where you've been raised with your own particular hardships, when you've spent your whole life fighting for justice and freedom and rights of others, or you've spent your whole life in poverty, wondering where your next meal was going to come from. It can be really hard to accept that you have unearned advantages, that the world is set up in your favor most of the time. But here's the thing. Privilege isn't just wealth or opportunity. It's living in a society that was created by people like us for us, like you for you. Just like in that ever so slight parody of patriarchy in the Barbie movie, in the real world, Ken only sees men. Mostly white men like himself in positions of stature and power and wealth. No problem there. And this society grants us, in the dominant culture, freedoms we probably don't always even recognize as freedoms. In 1989, gender studies scholar and activist Peggy McIntosh published her essay, quintessential essay, White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Backpack. Yes. Many of us have read it, have studied it. It's really become a foundational tool for classes on undoing systems of racism and white supremacy culture. And in her work to bring more equity into higher education in the curriculum, at the time more gender equity, she noticed that men often denied and struggled against the idea that they were overprivileged, even while recognizing the disadvantages facing the women they worked with, or the women in their classrooms. Later in her work, she noticed those same kind of denials in the way white people reacted when confronted with racial privilege. Here's some of her reflection on the topic. She writes, "I think whites are carefully taught not to recognize white privilege, as males are taught not to recognize male privilege. So I have begun in an untutored way to ask, what is it like to have white privilege? I have come to see white privilege as an invisible package of unearned assets, which I can count on cashing in each day, but about which I was meant to remain oblivious. White privilege is like an invisible weightless backpack of special provisions, maps, passports, code books, visas, clothes, tools, and blank checks." I strongly encourage you to find and read her essay if you have ever read it. If you haven't yet read it, and even if you have, read it again. It does a far better job of confronting the pain of privilege than this sermon. It's much longer. And if you have read it and you go and read it again, I did so just for this sermon, and it was revelatory and painfully uncomfortable, just as it was the first time. But so important to remind ourselves of those facts again and again. Here are a few things she lists that live in the invisible backpack, which also is posted right here in our flower installation hanging from the pulpit. So if you want to come and take a look at all 40-something after the service, you can. Here's some of the things in our invisible backpack of privilege. I can turn on the television or open the front page of the paper and see people of my race widely represented. When I'm told about our national heritage or about civilization, I am shown that people of my color made it what it is. I am sure that my children will be given curricular materials that testify to the existence of their race. I can take a job with an affirmative action employer without having coworkers on the job suspect that I got it because of race. I can choose public accommodation without fearing that people of my race cannot get in or will be mistreated in the places I have chosen. I can be sure that if I need medical help, my race will not work against me. If my day, week, or year is going badly, I need not ask of each negative episode or situation whether it has racial overtones. I can swear or dress in second-hand clothes or a t-shirt in the pulpit, or not answer letters without having people attribute these choices to the bad morals, the poverty, the illiteracy, or some other nature of my race. I can do well in a challenging situation without being called a credit to my race. There's like oof moments in there, and there's 40-something of them. And I want to just pause for a moment, digest some of those, and then also consider all the ways our state legislature, particularly in recent years, is actively passing laws to protect those privileges, along with the privileges of gender, class, sexuality, all of them. Now, I know since the horrific death of George Floyd and the racial reckoning that followed, many of us have become much more aware and more intentionally engaged in the practice of confronting our many layered privileges that our systems of supremacy have protected. And I'm very proud of that work and grateful to the leadership of our racial justice ministry team and so many of you who are actively taking part in their offerings and in your own unlearning. And it's hard work, and it's uncomfortable. Thank you, Jonathan, for being vulnerable enough to share that discomfort with us. And we need to build up our stamina and tolerance for that discomfort, for that vulnerability, or we will never, ever be able to help create systemic change. And we are certainly watching that discomfort from our national confrontation of race and privilege turn into backlash and continued to play out in violent and ugly ways. Make no mistake, that resurrection at our Capitol was fueled by the pain of being confronted with white, cisgender, heteronormative privilege, unearned, unexamined privilege. And McIntosh has begun referring to unearned privilege as conferred dominance. That sits a lot more clearly and accurately than privilege. Religion and culture blogger Chris Boschool writes, when you are accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. When you are accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. I think it was last year's Super Bowl Sunday. I was sitting watching the national anthem and all the bells and whistles along with it with my family. My younger son is there, 14 at the time, with his good friend, also there, 14 at the time, and they show the flyby of the jets and then flashes on the bottom of the screen that, I don't know if they were all women, lots of women. Maybe there was just one woman, it's possible. And I made some, big enthusiastic, I think they were all women, big enthusiastic display of like, women fighter pilots, check that out. And the 14-year-olds like to push back on me when I go there. They bait me, but it's okay because then I can launch into my lectures. And, I got a little bit of like, but wait, all women isn't fair. And I paused and I said, well, it's been all men for a really long time. And then I said, do you know who Ruth Bader Ginsburg is? And do you know what she said when she asked how many women would be enough women on the Supreme Court? And her answer was, when there are 9. Because in order to find equity and equality and balance, maybe the scales need to tip the other way for a while. The same for race. Maybe the scales need to tip all the way the other way for a while. All this anger we see from people screaming, all lives matter. All this anger we see from people insisting that their religious freedom is being infringed because a gay couple wants to get married, or our trans and non-binary community wants to hear their correct pronouns. All these people angry about immigrants, angry about Muslims, angry about happy holidays, angry about not being able to say bigoted things without being called a bigot. Equality can feel like oppression, but it's not. It is only the feeling of discomfort, that discomfort in losing a little bit of our privilege. We all might feel the weight of unearned and sometimes unconscious privilege, and that's okay. We probably ought to be uncomfortable. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us a long time ago that we ought to be maladjusted. We have to experience and move through that discomfort to get to the breakthrough. And remember, that's the actual theme for this month, breakthrough. My colleague, the Reverend Margaret Beckman, reminds us it's been a very long time that the experiences and voices of whole groups of people have been marginalized, dismissed, minimized, and rendered invisible. People are hurt. People are traumatized. People's lives are forever diminished or truncated in some important way. People are angry. All of these responses are legitimate and need to be validated. The breakthrough comes in recognizing those truths and then using our privilege to begin to rectify them and dismantle the systems that allow them to continue. Peggy McIntosh suggests that to redesign social systems, we first need to acknowledge their colossal unseen dimensions. The silences and denials surrounding privilege are the key political tool here. They keep the thinking about equality or equity incomplete, protecting unearned advantage and conferred dominance by making them taboo subjects. Most talk by whites about equal opportunity seems to be about equal opportunity to try to get into a position of dominance while denying that systems of dominance exist. And for us as Unitarian Universalists, equality is only part of the vision of beloved community. The breakthrough we are really working toward is liberation. Here's a graphic to help us think through that argument. I suspect many of you have probably seen some version of this before. Reality shows how our many privileges benefit us and begin to look exactly like conferred dominance, almost like hoarding all of those benefits of privilege. And equality is not quite enough. Equality is everyone having the same benefits and access, good idea, but still allows for privileges to interfere and leave some people out. And the goal is not to bring people into the current systems of dominance and power that were never made for them in the first place. After all, Audre Lorde reminds us that we cannot dismantle the master's house with the master's tools, because these systems hurt all of us, even those in power. The goal is liberation. And the project of liberation is a project of deconstructing, dismantling, even smashing all of the systems of power and privilege, of dominance and oppression, and constructing wholly new systems that center collective thriving and human flourishing and belonging. Belonging for all people, period. And we will need all of these incredible social tools at our disposal: equality, diversity, equity, accessibility, inclusion, and belonging. Belonging is showing up with or without shoes and without fear of judgment. And to get there, to get to liberation and belonging, it may very well mean giving up some of our privilege, maybe even a lot of it. It may mean 9 Black women on the Supreme Court. It may mean 9 Black women fighting all of the fighter jets. Well, no fighter jets, yes. Okay, thank you. No military-industrial complex, Roger, correct. Okay. Defeats the purpose. And yet, if we have to. The great poet Emma Lazarus, who penned the haunting words engraved on our Statue of Liberty, "Give me your tired, your poor," also penned the words, "Until all of us are free, none of us can be free." Until all of us are free, none of us can be free. And it takes a lot of heartbreak and pain and discomfort to crack our hearts open and let that reality sink in. A world where belonging and liberation are the highest ideals is a world where we all shall be free. May we create that world together. May it be so. Amen. Let's pray together, friends. I invite you to take a breath. Let's take a few breaths. And if those feelings of discomfort, prickliness, or even despair are floating around in you, heartbreak, hopelessness, just let them be there. Spirit of life and love, holy mystery, this day, let us pray for courage. For the courage to cultivate humility in the face of inequity and pain. The courage to notice and name our unearned power and privilege. To to unpack our backpacks and lay them down as we recognize the harm and begin the long road on the breakthrough for healing. Together as a beloved community committed to freedom and dignity, to repair and repentance, let us work to dismantle the systems of pain and oppression, to smash the systems that protect power and supremacy, and instead build a new way. We pray for the courage of endurance, to keep acting in the midst of despair, to keep trying in the aftermath of failure, to keep hoping in the face of loss, creating a world of liberation and belonging, of joy and justice, of thriving and flourishing for all people. A world where we can all be free. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen. As we hear our fabulous closing song written by Garth Brooks and Stephanie Davis, written after the 1992 LA riots following the acquittal of the 4 police officers in the beating of Rodney King, you are invited to join in singing the chorus, "We Shall Be Free." The words will appear on our screen.
This ain't coming from no prophet, just an ordinary man. When I close my eyes, I see the way this world will be when we all walk hand in hand. When the last child cries for a crust of bread, when the last man dies for just words that he said, when there's shelter over the poorest head, then we shall be free. When the last thing we notice is the color of skin, and the first thing we look for is the beauty within, when the skies and the oceans are clean again, then we shall be free. We shall be free. We shall be free. Stand straight and walk proud, 'cause we shall be free. When we're free to love anyone we choose, and this world's big enough for all different views, when we all can worship from our own kind of pews, then we shall be free. We shall be free. We shall be free. Have a little faith and hold out, 'cause we shall be free. And when money talks for the very last time, and nobody walks a step behind, and there's only one race, and that's humankind, then we shall be free. We shall be free. We shall be free. Have a little faith and hold out, 'cause we shall be free. We shall be free. We shall be free. Stand straight and walk proud, 'cause we shall be free. One more time. We
Friends, I invite you to rise and place your hands over your heart for our closing blessing. Let your heart crack open. Let your faith pour forth, and let us leave this space pledging our support, our solidarity to act in any way we can, to give over power and privilege and build a whole new world where we all are truly free. Blessed are we all. Go in peace.